Hello. So, welcome everyone. Bonsoir, bonjour et bienvenue à tous. J'ai le plaisir ce soir de présenter la session et l'étude de cas. I will present or moderate tonight the case study about a beautiful film which is in national competition, Sin la Habana, that was directed by kind of a local director, but also based in New York, Kaveh Nabatian. So hopefully this conversation, I don't want to call it a panel, this conversation is a celebration, a true celebration. As you all know, we have all been hit by COVID, especially festivals and all cultural events. And a lot of filmmakers, as they are doing their films and developing their films for many, many years, and Kaveh will tell us how many years he's been working on this film, how many years they are pregnant with those stories, pregnant with those films that they tried to deliver at some point, and are looking forward to share this with the world and in a theater and with the audience, with their crew, with their actors. And at the end of this journey, at the beginning of another one, of course, they are so looking forward to have that moment and to give that baby and show that baby to the world. Unfortunately, this could not happen for Kaveh and all his crew, but here we are online and hopefully giving you some insight and sharing some stories and the journey of this beautiful film, this world premiere that was selected here at the FNC the festival, FNC Montreal. So I would like, before to start, I would like to tell the audience that we have quite a lot of panelists. As you will see, this is a big family from all over the world joining us tonight. So we will first, there will be 3 parts, so please stick around. And there will be a few different types of people that are involved in this film coming and joining, meaning the director, the producer, the co-writer, the actors, the editor unfortunately could not join, and also the sound editor. And so this is a big family that's joining us tonight. But before that, before we start this conversation, I would like to invite Peggy, our representative here of Téléfilm Canada. Is Peggy with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Hayet. Thank you.
Yes.
Bonjour tout le monde.
Hi, Peggy.
Hi.
Welcome and welcome and thank you very much for accepting this invitation. Merci d'avoir accepté cette invitation. Vous avez été très impliqué dans ce film et donc voilà. Donc on aimerait que vous nous disiez quelques mots.
Merci. Thank you. I'm very pleased to help kick off today's panel. Téléfilm Canada is a long-standing and very proud supporter of this festival. Our team at Telefilm believes that festivals play an integral part of ensuring audiences get to see the incredible stories we produce right here, and now more than ever, given these uncertain times. We are so thrilled and proud to have supported Kaveh's first feature, Sin la Habana. His unique and engaging filmmaking showcases the beauty and strength of diversity. Telefilm recognizes the importance that our culturally diverse creators are able to tell their own stories. So I don't want to take up too much time. I just wanted to congratulate Kaveh, Gabrielle, and Menaik and the entire casting crew on this beautiful film, and wishing you lots of success during these very uncertain times. Thank you. Hayet?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Peggy. Thank you. So we've asked, I just want to tell the audience that we've asked most of the panelists to be hidden, but they are there, they are listening. So please, if you have questions during the conversation for specific people on this panel, you will be able to ask them directly. They are with us, but they are hiding. So let's start. I am very happy, Kaveh, to be welcoming you to this conversation. We met a few years ago, and you are a very prolific I would not say just filmmaker, you're a prolific artist. You do so many things. I hope the audience will take the time to look at your bio. We will not go into the details of your career because it could take quite a while. But you have always been interested in so many aspects of arts, music, film, yeah, a lot of things. You're yourself a musician. So I've always been very curious and excited about how you work, your process. Also, you teach, you've been helping a lot of filmmakers. You're doing workshops and teaching cinema in Haiti. You've done this a little bit all over the world. So I don't want to talk too much about your background, but really try to spend the time on this, conversation to let you talk and your guests talk. So Kaveh, how did it all started? Why this film? Why Havana? And then I will ask Pablo to join you, and the two of you can tell us a little bit about how this all originated.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks, Hayet. It's nice to be here with you. The film started for me the first time I went to Cuba, which was in 2004, and I was there working on a different script, which turned out to not be a very good script, and so I never made it. But the fact of being in Cuba for a while allowed me to see a lot of stories and a lot of kinds of relationships that I hadn't necessarily seen before, and a lot of dynamics that I found really interesting. And it was kind of in observing those dynamics and in talking to people that the beginnings of the story came to me. And then also a big part of it was meeting Pablo, because a mutual friend of ours, Debbie Young, who I used to play in a band with, had dated Pablo, if I'm not mistaken. And and she told me that I should meet this guy who's this amazing hip hop producer. So we linked up in Havana, and I played on a couple of tracks with Pablo, and then we got to talking. And I don't know, Pablo, you want to take it from there?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we were at my house. I had a little home studio, so we were just basically just like fooling around with this particular track that I wanted to have some horns for. So Kaveh, we actually did end up recording some of the stuff, but in the end, I think the actual connection happened when we started talking about film. I'm a huge film buff. I watch a lot of films. I watch a lot of movies. So we started talking, and then I think last time when we were talking recently, and sort of thinking about what was going to happen in this panel, we actually were sort of retracing what happened, and some of the idea was not the idea, but actually some of the things that happens. Like Kaveh was asking me, like the films that I had seen, I was telling him the films. I think we ended up talking about Wong Kar-wai briefly, and then somehow you would not expect me to know about Wong Kar-wai's work and like Knowing in the Mood for Love or like Happy Together and things like that. So we ended up basically having this conversation where I kind of barfed to him the idea that I had this idea for like a film. It's like this really, I think this very, very simple, very, very minimal idea of like this conflict, you know, the guy who wants to leave the country and stuff. So this is kind of like where the spark happened. Then we started, I remember it was by Malecon in Havana, somewhere near Riviera Hotel, walking, and we're both sort of clicking into the realization this would be a project that we would do somehow. So this is kind of like the beginning, but it all started in, you know, through Debbie Young and like this musical connection that we have, obviously.
Pablo, sorry, Kaveh.
I was going to say that was in 2004. So I thought it was 2005, but it's actually 2004.
2004, yeah.
16 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. I hope the audience heard that. 2004, that's where it's all started, and it's now being what it is. Pablo, I was actually quite impressed when I did a little bit of research on you, and excited because I have a little penchant for hip hop. So I was really impressed. And so you're a scholar, you're an academic. Right now you are in Scotland, I guess, right? Yes.
Yeah.
You're in Scotland. And what I thought was kind of interesting, and I guess with Kaveh, that's probably also why there was a connection is I would say you became a little bit of a specialist of the Afro-Cuban music and especially the hip hop scene. Could you guys elaborate a little bit on that? Because we will talk later about music, about dance, and and how this, of course, has a lot of to do with this film. But could you touch on that?
Yeah, so briefly, I'll see if I can kind of cover it quickly. My background is, like, academically, my background is linguistics. I studied linguistics in Havana. And I was just like doing linguistics, but actually looking for things that were culturally pertinent to allow me to understand how to learn English better. And to teach my students at the School of Languages in Havana how to learn better. I thought that it's important to have the learning process through a culturally pertinent experience. So it's not just teaching them or teaching people English, for example, in this case, which actually is what I was teaching in Havana, teaching them words without really the actual cultural experience, having it as close as possible to, So obviously Havana was not that place. So what I did was basically bring people to my classrooms and myself, expose myself to people coming from the States and Jamaica or Canada or anywhere, people who spoke English, to basically try to learn through them. And relationships that I had, friends, girlfriends that I had as well. So this is kind of like where I come from. And through that, I found a way to, especially reading Spin magazine, reading Rolling Stones, reading Vibe magazine, and learning about language, urban language. And Rolling Stones actually had a little section where they had a lot of of the new words that people would use, slang words, English words that people use in the streets, or actually within the songs and the lyrics, that people could understand what they were talking about. So I developed a connection with hip hop. There was through linguistics, but I already loved the music myself. So by say 1991, 1992, I was like giving small lectures, like really class lectures on hip hop music, but I was a big fan of the music itself. I had listened to rappers like 1978. I had become a huge fan of Sugar Hill and like all the old music. I danced a little bit, but I wasn't really a dancer. It was more like me grappling with this Black American music experience. So later on, this is 1992 at the University of Havana. I quit in 1997 and started working with a hip hop group. The people in Havana back then, or they called themselves Amenaza, and I was their producer for a little while, and also their creative director. And then we started working quite intensely, and then we broke up. The group broke up in 1998, and then they went on to France via Germany, and then they became Orishas. You probably know about Orishas. So I was their manager in Cuba and their producer in Cuba of at least the initial songs. And then now after that, I was actually given by a really good friend of mine. His name is Michael Esterson, and another friend of mine in Cuba. His name is Ariel Fernandez, who they asked me what kind of equipment did I need to make a hip hop compilation, a Cuban hip hop compilation. So I said, well, I need this and this and this and this, not this equipment. And then 10 days later, they showed up from New York. Michael showed up from New York with all this gear they gave me. And I started, I was like this guy who, I used to write little poetry, and I had all these ideas about hip hop. And with all this gear in my house, I started making beats and sampling stuff and sampling the stuff that my mom listened to and sampling music. And I ended up finding some inspiration and getting some ideas together and putting some stuff that ended up being iconic in some way. It's quite interesting because I feel like it was something that more than I planned and thought about, something that happened to me in some way. But I love the experience for it. So through there, I basically ended up working with different artists. And now I'm actually, doing some work now in Scotland, actually revisiting the experience that happened in Havana through anthropological studies. And that's kind of like the idea.
Wonderful, and very timely as well. Pablo, and I won't get into that because that would take us, somewhere else.
I know it would take forever.
Yeah, exactly. So, but Kaveh and yourself, I guess, Kaveh, you being a musician, of course, that meeting and then writing together made sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had never written a feature film before, and neither had Pablo, so we didn't really know what we were getting into, which is partly why it took 16 years to make it. But we thought we had this like really interesting idea, and also I know it was really important for Pablo to show an Afro-Cuban experience in film in a way that is rarely shown. Like definitely when people come from the outside and show Afro-Cuban culture and religion, it tends to exotify it or like look at it in this kind of strange way. And even within Cuban cinema, there's not that many really good or honest portrayals of Afro-Cuban culture. And so Pablo wanted to show the religion and the culture and all this stuff in a way that was honest and didn't put it up on some kind of crazy pedestal, and showed how it was just a part of life there, and to feature Afro-Cubans as in lead roles. And I thought that was really interesting and really important. And like Afro-Cuban music and rumba, the film was actually called Rumba until like 4 or 5 years ago, because rumba in Cuba has a different kind of meaning than in North America or in Europe. You think of rumba as this like ballroom dance that's kind of cheesy, but a real Afro-Cuban rumba is it's super intense, interlocked rhythms with 6/4, all this crazy stuff. It's really, as an outsider, it's hard to even really find where the beat is, but you just feel it in this really intense way. So I wanted to be able to explore things like that, but not just be like, oh, look at this cool thing I saw. Like, where is it actually coming from, and how do people relate to that from within the culture? And so working with Pablo was absolutely necessary for that to happen in an honest way.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. Yes. So it definitely transpires in the film. And so how was the decision? Did you decide, as you were writing, did you decide on location and decide, okay, this will happen between those two countries? Or at first it was a Cuban story and became a Cuban Canadian, because that's also, I thought it was like an interesting artistic choice, because the whole story could have happened in Cuba, in Havana, but you decided to actually bring them to Montreal and have the story, go on in Montreal. And I thought that was also nice to take those Cubans outside of Cuba, and because you could have just stayed there, with the heat and the sun and take the audience into this kind of like nonchalant type of experience, but you didn't. You're taking us back to North America. So is it, Kaveh, can you or Pablo, like how did you work on that?
I would actually ask Kaveh to talk about that, because I'm thinking about how is it that we actually brought it to Canada. I think that he probably be able to talk about it better.
Yeah.
Well, at one point it did all take place in Cuba. At one point we had this deconstructed film, because we actually wrote some of it while Pablo's mother was sick, and so we actually wrote some of it in the hospital. And so we had this idea that it's kind of like a few years have gone by since their relationship happened, and they run into each other outside of this hospital, and then it goes backwards in time. And that was like in an early draft. But I think the main reason is that you often see films about people wanting to leave, and that's the big thing. And then finally they leave at the end, and then you see a couple shots of them in the new country, and it's either good or bad, and that's it. Whereas for us, I mean, it's actually only a third of the film really takes place in Cuba. I was interested in showing Canada not as, like they're dreaming of leaving for Canada, and they think that it's going to be a certain way, and it's not that way. But it's also not like terrible, because that's the other narrative that you hear a lot. It's like, okay, it's going to be like, the roads are going to be paved with gold, and then you get there and it's just a disaster and a nightmare. And that's not really the case. As throughout the whole writing process and the filming, what was interesting to me was to show the complexities and nuances between people, and like what dreams people have and what desires people have, and then what happens when your dreams come true and it's not really the way you expected it to be. But it's not either like this terrible tragedy or whatever,
Right. Yeah. Kaveh, and I think you're also talking about this idea that, like, and I think a lot of it is autobiographical in some sense, like how my own experience any idea like how I think there's some interesting commentary on the Afro-Cuban family, and it's on dispersion really. And how individuals, Afro-Cubans also find happiness outside of this, this link, this connection between that they're supposed to happen between the black woman and the black man. It doesn't mean that I'm actually shunning that or I'm against that and saying so there's also stories where, most of us have gone out in the world and found ourselves and found our sort of our center outside of Havana. So in a sense, this is conversation or commentary on it's almost like just bringing this up and seeing how it works out. So in a sense, having not just Canada, not just towards the end of the film, which is something it's like it's like the achievement, and then we don't know nothing. It's like bringing Canada closer to Havana and having, the spectators see some of what happens and how things evolve in Canada as well. I think that was actually, Canada, the Canada part, even though we did think about, bringing him somewhere. Canada was something that Kaveh brought in quite well. And I think at some point we actually were talking about the sea and like how, I remember there was like, it was coming to me some ideas about this moments where we were talking about, they were in the boat and like how we're gonna sort of end the film with this waters and Yemaya and da. But I think having it more present and having the human story be in some way finding its own, sort of routes or conclusions to what people did specifically, what Sarah does and how she finds herself, how she jumps on that bus towards the end. It's sort of a better way to sort of complete the idea of what happens to people or to Afro-Cubans in this case once they leave the country. It's like what do we do Sin la Habana without Havana? Like how do we become who we should be or who we want to be without the place we're from? So this is kind of like what I thought was actually very, very interesting, well accomplished to the movie now.
And I think it's also important, but to be really specific, like to not try to imply that there's a single Afro-Cuban experience or a single Iranian Jewish Canadian
experience. Exactly.
And to get really into the specifics of this one guy who happens to be a ballet dancer, who's not a good salsa dancer, this Iranian woman who's getting out of it, and then I think by being really specific, it speaks to a more universal kind of experience because you can feel the reality of what those people could be going through. Whereas it would have been almost easier to have like an archetypal like white woman and an archetypal black Cuban and not really get so deep into like a specific way of living. And so we spent a lot of time really interviewing people and talking to people and researching. For me, I researched ballet like crazy to find out like what is the reality of these people and then how can we give that breadth of reality to this film.
Great. Thank you, Pablo. We're going to move on now to another part of your crew, Kaveh, and I will call to join us Evelyn, who is the main actress, or one of the main actresses, Evelyn O'Farrell, who is also a dancer, a model, an actress. She knows how to dance, that's for sure. And she works as well in dance companies, etc., etc. So thank you, Evelyn, for joining us.
Hello.
I am inviting as well Yona Acosta. Yona Acosta, who is also a dancer. And please, audience who are listening out there, si vous entendez ça, il faut à tout prix aller sur les sites internet de Yona Acosta. Yona, who's an amazing, beautiful dancer, and I was actually very happily surprised. I love dance, and I was very happily surprised on seeing your career, Yona. And I'm definitely encouraging the audience to check out your work and hopefully see you dance as well. You are a dancer. You started, from what I know, when you were 10, but who knows? And you dance at the National Ballet in Havana. Then you went to the English in 2014. You went to the English National Ballet. Years later, you end up at the Bayerische. Like, who would have thought, right? You're like, there you are at the Bayerische Stadtballet in Munich. I read also, and I because I wanted to see you somewhere, and I read on your website that you just finished Giselle, I guess, not such a long time ago. So hopefully I can catch you another time. So welcome, Yona, welcome, Evelyn. I will also ask Julio to join us, Julio Hong. Hi, Julio, welcome. Julio is, I mean, really, I'm so excited, really, because I saw the film, and it's very rare that we see these kind of films when it comes to dance, choreography, and also spirituality. And Kaveh, I'll let you then talk with your guests about that whole dimension that Julio, I think, advised you on. And Julio, I will ask you also some questions about that. So, Kaveh, when we spoke, you talked about a lot. There were a lot of firsts in this film. This film is basically just a lot of first experiences, and I would like you to tell us how did it happen again? How did you meet Evelyn? How did you cast Yona? Where did you see them, meet them, hear about them, and how did you bring Julio in all this?
So yeah, I mean, it was my first feature. I think it was all of the actors, in some cases, first time being in a film at all. I think in all cases, the first time being in a feature for the lead actors. And so there had to be a lot of trust between us to get to where we got. I mean, and Pablo and I had never written a feature either. So we were all just kind of like going on intuition and trust. And I think that comes out in the film in a certain way. I have a background in documentary as much as in other types of filmmaking. And so it was really important to me that since it was going to have a lot of dance in it, that the dancing be done by real dancers and not actors who spent a year training in ballet and could kind of pull it off and then have a body double. Because especially with ballet, I mean, the way people walk when they're not dancing, you don't always put the toes out. There's all this stuff it's like a specific, I mean, ballet dancers have a certain kind of body just from the years and years of training. And so I heard about Yona actually from Julio. Yona's uncle is Carlos Acosta, who was one of the great ballet dancers of, the 20th century or 21st too, I guess. And so Julio put us in touch, and then I was on tour with my band in Europe, and I went to Munich to meet Yona, and we had a coffee at Starbucks and talked a little bit, and then we went back to the ballet studio and kind of did a couple random auditions on my iPhone, and they weren't super conclusive, but neither of us really knew what we were doing, but I had a good vibe. I had a feeling that there was something really there. And so went with that. And then Julio I met through a friend of a friend in that way that Montreal is. And my friend knew that I was looking into doing something about Afro-Cuban culture and dance. And so, I mean, Julio is the guy in Canada for sure when dealing with Afro-Cuban dance and culture. And then Evelyn, we actually did real casting call in Havana. And I mean, as soon as Evelyn walked in, it was just like the room kind of lit up and there was no choice. Yes. And she right away, like she could act right away. Like it didn't take any work. And we did a lot of improv games and stuff, and it was like on from the get-go. And so I felt really comfortable. I mean, I felt really comfortable with everybody. But for sure, when we were in rehearsals and stuff, it was like, okay, what are we doing? And the levels weren't where they needed to be at the beginning, and that was a challenge. I was like, how are we going to get there? But then we did.
Indeed. Yes, I mean, when you're talking about Evelyn coming in and lighting up the room, she does the same when she shows up on screen. It's very hard not to look at her. Anyone else can do whatever they want, but my eyes were just on this beautiful, really beautiful woman, and definitely great acting, Evelyn. So congratulations on that. Evelyn, yeah. So I understand that you had to act in English.
Yes.
Yes. How is that for you?
Was difficult, really, because my English is very comme ci, comme ça.
Comme ça, indeed.
So I have to speak in Spanish because it's very difficult for me. I hope Kaveh, you can help me. Kaveh,
yes, we can help you a little bit. Kaveh, myself, and Susanna in the back. She can help us.
Yes, I know. No fue complicado para mí.
It wasn't difficult for her.
Yeah. Tuve que estudiar el guión que era en inglés por la pronunciación. Soy bastante exigente conmigo misma, sobre todo con la pronunciación. Y de hecho creo que se ha quedado en mi mente todo el guión después de un año de haberlo hecho, precisamente por la cantidad de estudio que tuve.
Yeah, basically she just had to study a ton and get it in her head. And then after the year of studying it, it was all in her brain and she was able to get it out. And I mean, that was another thing too, was it was important to me. Like it was a I guess kind of a happy coincidence that Evelyn's Spanish wasn't better at the time, because it's really hard if you speak English well to then go backwards and try to put on an accent. And I didn't want that, but it would have been weird if she'd arrived in Montreal and already spoke English perfectly. So it was actually like the fact that there was a certain amount of struggle there or a certain challenge there made sense for the character. And I mean, it was the same for like I tried to cast people as close to the character as possible, so there wouldn't have to be that much like crazy acting, so people could just get into the role and kind of be themselves. I mean, I think that's true for Yona too. I mean, Yona also left Cuba and started a new life somewhere else, and not in the same way, obviously, but I think there's enough similarities there that Yona was able to just dig into his own life experience.
I think that Kaveh took the opportunity for these special things, you know. Kaveh, tomaste las oportunidades de las diferentes dificultades de nosotros y sacaste un provecho de todo eso.
Yeah, the challenges and the realities of the different people were, instead of trying to like divert from those, I tried to really focus on them and use them as part of the script of the storytelling.
Indeed. And so the chemistry, I have to say, the chemistry between Evelyn and Yona is very beautiful. And so Yona, when you were brought on and you met with Evelyn, how did that work? How did that chemistry work?
I mean, I think at the beginning it was everything like really, really weird, because I definitely don't know her and she doesn't know me, obviously. But we all Cuban, you know. I think it's sort of like it's all good. It's all like a big family. So at the end, we actually end up like really together, and yeah, I think we did really good. Yeah.
And Yona, you're a professional dancer, and again, you know, I'm really admirative of your talent. And how was it for you to be in the film? Because that's very different than, you know, dancing on stage, you know, and having an audience there. It's a very different like body work, because, you know, as a dancer, yes, you use space, of course, and you know how to do that. But this is like camera, different space, positioning. I mean, I'm sure Kaveh was good, but how did you experiencing as a dancer / actor?
I mean, I have to say it was hard, but at the same time, it was sort of like easy, because as a dancer, actually you sort of like break the nerves, you know, from going on the stage, and you basically do the best that you can. But at the same time, when you have to do a ballet, you have to, for example, you have to do Romeo and Juliet or something like that. You have to act, you know. You have to basically fall in love with a woman that you know probably for a year, and that's the woman that you have to dance. You know what I mean? So, and yeah, it was actually in that aspect it wasn't hard, but I would say in front of the camera it's actually quite different, because you actually had the camera in front of you, like pretty close to you, and you're like, okay, what's happening here? Why is so close? You know? And I find it that quite hard, but I have to say that when you get used to, I think that's it. It's all coming like pretty fluid.
So do you want to do another film?
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, if I had the opportunity, yeah, why not? It's just as an artist, I think that, I mean, if I can sing, if I can, I don't know, like basically do anything I can. I will be like willing to do it. I will be like, yeah, I will be on it.
Yeah.
I mean, Yona and Evelyn are both just such professional artists that even when there's difficulties, no one like freaked out. You know, it was like, okay, this is a challenge, but then they were able to get through it. And then like for things like intimacy scenes, for example, like I think actually one of the most tender scenes in the film is when Leonardo and Sarah are together, and we actually did this kind of like as an interpretive silent dance, and we actually used more of those shots than of the more like classic like sexy shots. And just seeing the way they're like, because they're both such good dancers, I was able to kind of create a space where they could move together and create this like really beautiful space between them. And because and the fact that they have that skill set and that way of being open to each other and that way of moving their bodies, it lent like almost like a kind of a poetic reality to the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely this. I agree, Kaveh. Like it's more movement. It's more an idea of movement than dance per se. It's really two bodies and how these two bodies communicate and how they talk to each other, etc. And I would like Julio to jump in, because you are the master choreographer, right? And apparently I haven't met you, and I haven't, but I know quite a lot of friends in Montreal that are totally interested in Cuban dancing. And so Julio and Kaveh, so the choreography was very important from the writing, from the writing stage. How did you work on that? And also, Julio, could you talk then a subject that is very important also in the film? It's the whole spiritual aspect. So I don't want to tell too much to the audience because I want them to see the film. But it's something we have seen, but not the same in the same way. And so Julio, could you explain a little bit what is this whole spirituality and how do people experience and live that spirituality?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for the invitation. And I remember when we first met with Jonah and Kaveh, and then Kaveh asked me, Julio, I need a dancer to do this. And I was already getting very old to do this, and I was also out of shape because I was doing other things. So we were looking for a young dancer being able to do it. I was going to a very crisis in my life regarding dancing, because I studied classical ballet, but I study Afro-Cuban dance. So every single time I was doing an Afro-Cuban performance or Afro-Cuban show, it was so difficult for the people to understand what we were doing, because the costumes is very rich, the dance is very rich. So I was looking the way to speak out every single thing so they are able to understand. So one of the things that helped me to refine the movement a little bit, it was my training in classical ballet. So I used my classical training to refine the movement of Afro-Cuban dance. So that's why I came with the idea to bring Jonah to the movie, because I was looking for a classical dancer that could dance Afro-Cuban dance, instead of looking for Afro-Cuban dancer that it could dance ballet. And also bringing some classical training, it will refine the whole part of the movie. And also the audience, it will find a movement that are used to see. Like everybody in the planet, somehow they have seen a ballet dancer, but not everybody in the planet hasn't seen an Afro-Cuban dancer. So for me, combining the two of them, it was the key to make this movie. Yeah.
And Kaveh, I think that one thing that probably you thought about is how do you express the invisible, right? I mean, all those beliefs and how, all those practices, all those beliefs which are, about the invisible, be it God, be it the universe, be it whatever we want to call them, and also those deities. I think, if my pronunciation is correct, is Yemaya? Is it Yemaya?
Yeah, Yemaya.
Yeah. Okay. So if you are practicing this, Kaveh, as a director...
Well, Centuria would be the name of the religion. Yemaya
okay.
is one of the gods.
Is one of the deities, exactly. Yeah. So how did you think about that? As on a creative level, how did you try to transcribe that invisible world?
Yeah, well, so, I mean, partly, you know, a lot of that was actually from Pablo, because we're in the writing, the religious element was very important from the beginning, and Pablo's a religious guy as well. And then when Pablo wasn't able to be on set, that's when Julio took over, because I needed someone who really understood it in a deep way. Like I've researched a lot, but I'm not at the same level in any way. But for me personally, it's like the way I see it, and that I was kind of trying to get across in the film, is it's like, if you imagine like there's a blanket, and you can see the blanket, and then you like peer under the blanket, and there's something else going on there, and then maybe there's another blanket, and I was trying to strip away blankets, and then somewhere underneath there's just like, it's a place where music is life, and like energy is, like you're basically seeing energy. And so in the film, I tried to show that by showing some elements of spiritual rituals, of Centuria rituals, but then there's also some stuff that, like, I don't know if you remember, but there's these like orange clouds and turmoil and kind of energy and cosmic flashes and stuff. And that's kind of like the thing that's pushing all of us, that we can't really ever see, but cinema gives you a chance to at least put a visual aspect to it. And I mean, a lot of what makes movies great is it's like during that time, you're not thinking about being late or the metro or the this or the that. And so the more kind of blankets you can peer under it, the more deeply you can kind of connect to some sort of spiritual or cosmic experience. And in this film, that spirituality was Centuria. That was the you know, I think it's like there's one, say, mountain, and there's all these different paths, and you have to take a leap of faith and go down one of the paths to get any closer to the top of the mountain. And Centuria is the path of this film, to take a few steps along a path towards something.
And Kaveh, so sorry, but you know, please let me know if anyone can answer that better. But when is that something that really hit you when you went to Cuba? That, you know, that all these practices, you know, which are very specific, very, you know, and you made there is some humor in the film, you know, when Yona gets to Montreal and he's with this Montreal girl, and he starts to practice, and they have those kind of strange conversations, and anyway, I won't spoil it for people who haven't seen the film. But is that something that, as a foreigner, is that something that really hit you and spoke to you? Is that also something?
Yeah, I mean, it was completely life-changing for me.
Yeah.
When I went down there, I met a cab driver, and he was like, "I'm a babalao." Like, "Oh, what's a babalao?" I was like, "Just come, I'll do a consulta." And so I went. It was a very intense ceremony. But which was also amazing to me was kind of the banality of the ceremony. It's like there's people watching TV in the next room, and then we're like sacrificing pigeons in another room. You know, it's not like this big woo-woo thing. It's like, okay, this is what's happening here. And he asked me a lot of questions, or he asked me to ask questions, and then he answered them, and everything he said came true, like exactly. And I was like, okay, this is some serious stuff. So then I became initiated and did my abo and everything, and that was also, you know, an extremely intense, visceral experience, especially as a foreigner. You know, you're not used to sacrificing chickens and licking them and stuff. So you know, it was a lot. It's definitely like just a lot of energy.
Wow. Okay.
And so of course, you know, as a filmmaker, it's like such an exciting and unusual and intense experience. Yeah. It's like something you want to put on screen. But it was really important for me to make sure that I did it in a way that was true to the religion and not just give my opinion on it or my vision on it. That's why it was so important for Pablo and Julio to be a part of it and to make sure that we were doing things in a way that felt authentic and accurate.
Yeah.
It was very real. It was like everything we did, it was real from A to Z. Like there was nothing fake. And to answer your question about how to be invisible in this, is being real. It's basically, we did everything. Every single thing you see in the movie is real. Like we didn't fake nothing. I was like, the thing of the thing is right there. There's no playing around. Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely, definitely. That's why I think it feels so authentic when you see the film. Yes, Kaveh? Sorry.
I was just gonna say, like, for example, the ceremony that you see at the beginning of the film, and then that you see coming back throughout, and that kind of provides kind of a spiritual backbone to the film. We just went in and really did a full ceremony with Yona, and actually Pablo's Babalao, and who also ended up being, who did a bunch of consultas and stuff with me. So, you know, I remember that the most of the team was outside while we were inside this small, intense, super sweaty, kind of like smelling like blood room, doing a full-on ceremony with dancing, and it's a lot of it's like long, and you don't really know what necessarily was going on unless you really understand the religion. So it was interesting seeing, like, I'd done it enough times that I got what was going on. I was like, I think we should just film this documentary style, and I know that it's going to become useful, but there's no way that I could. I mean, this guy Yoel, who's amazing, there's no way I could really guide him and be like, okay, no, say this now. Okay, this stuff's boring. Let's skip. We just like,
that's impossible.
For like 4 hours, and we out outside.
I remember being in a ceremony, and then the film director Kaveh and then the other guy were filming. Said, "Where are we finished? So we have to finish. We have to finish the whole thing." So.
Could I say something? Could I say a small thing, or is it my time out?
Pablo, do you mind? I just need to move a little bit, and maybe if we have time, please keep your idea, please. Perfect. Because I know Gabriel, the producer, has been waiting to jump in, so I would like to invite Gabriel, and also Sylvain. If Sylvain is around already or not. So if he's not around, that's okay. Gabriel, thank you for meeting us, for joining us. And you are a Montreal-based producer from a company called Voyelle. You have actually a partner also in this company. You are a very quite well-established producer actually in Montreal. You do a lot of films. There's quite a lot of films you have produced. Why did you jump in this one? What made you jump in this film?
I still don't know. Why? Because I was familiar with Kaveh's work for sure. Those magnificent short movie. I think the first festival I've been in, one of his films was presented at the same time that the short film I produced, and I was already a fan. So when he asked me to meet him and he talked to me about this project, I was super happy about it, and I jumped it in a natural way. Yes, and I was also familiar with Cuba because we shot a film there, but it was at the same time that we were preparing this other film. So yeah, it was all a nice connection between.
Nice. How was as a Montrealer and like as a Canadian? How was the shoot for you? Were you okay with the shoot, or was it an adventure? I won't ask you to go into the details. But it's not always easy to shoot in different countries, especially, I don't know, Cuba. I mean, unfortunately, I haven't been yet, but I know that it's not always an easy country when it comes to shooting, when it comes to do more official things there. How was your experience? And with Kaveh, how was that?
It was super fun. It's always an adventure, right? It's always a mix of really dramatic things and really graceful ones. So the shooting, yeah, it was a great pleasure actually. And we shot an entire feature film in Cuba like 2 years before we shot the part of Sin la Habana. So we met the people there already. And you know, we were just a little small crew from Montreal coming to Havana. In this really special neighborhood that Centro Habana is. Really specific vibe there as well. And I think, it helped because we were so like a tight family arrived, and we were curious, and we were really prepared to meet the Cuban way of do a film. And to in French, I always said that it's like you have to marry the country you're in when you work on a piece of art like that. So yeah, so this one was no exception. It was really a super rich experience for myself and for the whole team, for the whole Montreal team. And I think maybe I hope that it was nice for the Cuban team as well. Yeah.
Well, from what I see right now, it sounds like it was an enjoyable experience. Kaveh, is there anything you want to add working with Gabrielle, and how you guys developed this project? How you, maybe not going too technical on the financing and all that, but is there anything you want to share on just the experience? And also, I guess, Gabrielle, you mentioned the artistic value. You know, you said at the beginning, you said, you know, you didn't say, oh, I really love the story, or, you know, it was really your heart went into appreciating the artistic vision of Kaveh and his talent, which I think a lot of creative producers are looking for. They're really looking for a voice, for a point of view, for an eye, for something who brings something new. And it's not just the story per se. So do you want to elaborate a little bit on that? Or Kaveh, do you want to elaborate why Gabrielle?
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, Voyelle only makes good films. That's the 20th Century is amazing. All You Can Eat Buddha, I love, and
yeah, which was a big hit. I mean, I remember it on all over the world when I travel, but I heard about that film all the time.
Yeah. And even their short films have always been cool. So I just knew that there was the potential for it to be a good home for Sin la Habana. And you know, one thing that was really amazing, I've worked with other producers, and every relationship with a producer is totally different. But what was one of the best things about working with Gabrielle and Manaik was they really gave me all the creative control. They never really tried to push me into something where I felt uncomfortable. Like, they had their opinions, but I felt like they trusted me to make the film that I wanted to make. And that's not always true. So that was a very beautiful thing about our relationship.
Nice. So Gabrielle, any kind of spiritual experiences did you have to, or did you want to, or the dancing, have you started to dance, or have you always wanted to dance? Like, how did that film impact you? It's hard to stay away from those experiences because they're so visceral. Sure. You know, dancing, music, spiritual practices, you know, they really take you, you know, as a person also.
Yes, of course. But I'm always dancing in my mind, I think. And yeah, of course. And it was thrilled to be, because, you know, you create a film, so you create a piece of art, and then you had some dance in it. So I remember all those dance scenes that we shot, like all the team were there looking, even if they were doing something else. All people come for see just as at least one take of the dance, or one take of the specialized scene. So yeah, it's really nice when you can put two forms of art in the same. And yes, it was a privilege, and to be surrounded by those magnificent dancers and actor as well. And it's a real pleasure to share this. Yeah, I was received more than I was sharing, because it's really boring to talk about budget with
yes, definitely. We will not spoil this beautiful conversation. So thank you so much, Gabrielle. We are expecting Sylvain Belmar, who is the sound editor, but we will continue our conversation. So Pablo, you wanted to say something, or anyone, do you want to say something about, in general, about your experience or working with Kaveh? By the way, I do believe that Kaveh, because I don't know him very well, but we know each other a little bit, is a very kind person and a very, very decent, very kind, very creative person. So just to let you know, you were very lucky in a way to start your careers as actors with him, I think. But do you want to say something about Kaveh? Do you want to share something, Yona, Evelyn, Julio?
Yeah, no, I think I'm gonna say a huge thank you for giving me the opportunity actually, to do my first movie at this kind of level. I never imagined that I probably would be doing something like that. I always wanted to do a movie and stuff, but I couldn't even dreaming about it. So I just want to say thank you for that. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you, man.
Thanks, Yona.
And I want to say something to Kaveh is a special person for me. I really love him. I love your work. I love your imagination, your creativity. I'm sorry, and realmente aprecio y aprecié mucho el trabajo que hicimos todos juntos y la familia que creaste. Muchas energías juntas y lograste unirnos en una sola que era Sin la Habana. Y realmente fue genial el trabajo. Gracias, Pablo, a ti también, que te conocí muy poquito. Y realmente fue especial la reunión que tuvimos. Hace bastantes años atrás, creo.
Y fue brevemente. I just wanted to say also, I think the driving force, I think was important for me. I mean, not in the case for me, what I thought was actually quite astounding and marvelous was, Kaveh's driving force through basically this 16 years that we've both been through to get this film done is amazing. Yeah, it's like, there's a word in Spanish called interesa, which is like this. It's not exactly integrity. It's more like to be the driving force of something, just like continue going to something from everything that we went to. I know I was actually quite demanding at points with the kind of story that I wanted to see or that I wanted to write or imagine in some sense, but I think that you were definitely an incredible force to get this done. It was incredible what you did. So I'm really, really happy and thankful for that too myself. Just make sure that I actually pile up my thank yous with the rest of the people.
So I just want to say, Kaveh, I always call you Acere. And I just have to say one thing. Mucho para ti siempre. Y thank you for everything. Thank you.
Whatever.
Thanks, guys. That's all. I mean, you guys were awesome. You guys were a family, and I miss you. And it's nice. It's nice to have this little moment together, even if it's across oceans and stuff. And hopefully, we'll all actually be together at some live festival one day. That's a dream for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to meet the people. That I would like to meet people personally. It'd be really good to meet Julio and meet Yona and Evelyn. Like have more time to talk to each other. Actually meet Gabrielle as well. It'd be really cool. Yeah,
that would be perfect.
Same for me. Now our dream are changing. Now I'm dreaming of seeing you for real.
Yes.
In a future, in a soon future. It will happen.
Good. Very good.
Well,
very.
Likewise, I'm watching this screen, I'm just imagining you on stage, all of you, and just saying everything you are saying and sharing, as you said so nicely, Evelyn, all this energy, all these people, all of you. I think you have your own personalities, your own energy, and Kaveh was kind of like putting you all together, and I'm really, really so happy that you guys managed to make this film. Gabrielle, congrats on making this happen with Kaveh and Pablo and all of you. So we are going now, Sylvain is maybe joining us, but if not, I'm just wondering if we have some questions from the audience who are watching this conversation, I hope, enjoying this sharing. So Susanna is gathering those questions for me. And is there anything, Pablo, that you wanted to add? Oh, by the way, yeah.
Oh, no, I was just going to talk briefly about the idea of prophecy that actually the film tries to weave, which is part of the starting point of the actual story, is that a lot of what Leonardo does and Yona does, supposed to do as acting, is to sort of bring in this idea that he's been told what his life purpose is through the movie. And so this is the enactment. There's one particular device that we try to use within the movie. I don't know if it makes sense to sort of drop it now, but I think there's like this idea that there's a prophecy that's supposed to be fulfilled. So this is where the spiritual part comes in and the invisible comes in, right? And actually, it's like we have been told what you're supposed to do and how to navigate, the world that you will encounter, so that you can fulfill this prophecy that you're told. So that's just how it's a very central idea in the movie, this idea of prophecy, which actually departs from a very Afro-Cuban religious mentality. This idea that we understand what our life purpose is.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Does anyone want to react on that? This idea of prophecy, this idea of Yona and Julio, I mean, your Evelyn as well, but your careers are amazing. I'm really impressed by what you've managed to do and who you've managed to become. And I'm sure it was not easy. It's a lot of work, a lot of dedication, a lot of passion and patience. But do you have that in you? Do you have this belief that there is a prophecy, there is a path you're supposed to follow?
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I would say yes, it is, because I have seen so many people, for example, in my profession as a ballet dancer, that are basically related to what had happened on the movie. I have seen so many people with so much talent that had to leave Cuba actually and work in, I don't know, in McDonald's or in somewhere else to actually get to the top, to what they deserve, because they have worked for it really hard. And this is really actually something really, really sad at the same time, but it's also beautiful, because it's like, yeah, I have made it. So that means if I did it, so you can do it. So many people have, can do it if you actually work and concentrate yourself and actually do it, like grab it how you want it. I think, yeah, you can make it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, part of the prophecy is exactly like Jonah say. During our life as dancers, we have met very good dancers and probably better dancers than us. That yes, the prophecy is not to do it, and then because I know many people that are 1,000 times better than what I do. It's just they don't know how to deal with it, and then their prophecy is something else. So that's why their life and destiny goes in another direction. So yes, I do believe in prophecy, and prophecy is part of the history. It has nothing to do with Afro-Cuban culture. Prophecy is a global thing. It happens everywhere.
Yes.
So it's not only us, and there's only one thing that I do believe is that you have to live for something to be able to live out of that something. That's the only, my main purpose in life is that you have to live for to be able to live from. So it's about that. And if you dedicate yourself to what you do, eventually it's going to happen. Maybe it's not going to happen, but the prophecy is there.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we do have, sorry Pablo, sorry. No, okay. We do have a question. So we are asked, especially for the actors and also for Kaveh in terms of acting, on directing actors. So were there moments when they had to improvise, or, you know, since they didn't have, first experiences, did you let them, Kaveh, improvise, maybe sometimes saying, okay, this is the minimum, I want you to do this. But if you feel that there is something you want to do, feel free to do it, but at least cover this, or everything was you were pretty strict because they didn't have that much experience?
I wasn't super strict. Like, definitely I wanted them to say things in their own way. Because I would write in English and then Pablo would translate it into Cuban Spanish, but then the way Evelyn or Yona might say it naturally, like sometimes they'd run up. Also, like in the documentary-ish sections, like they're somewhat at the dinner with Nassim, or like for sure in the ceremony, it was it was just more like reacting to what was going on. So I'd say it was like kind of in between. Like there's definitely, we followed the script for the most part, but then when something wasn't working, I'd be like, let's just try this. Or like a lot of what I do is I'll say something like, okay, this time do it like she smells bad, or this time do it like just fell in love. And even if it's the same words, giving it that kind of adjustment can bring a whole new life to the words that are there. And sometimes different words come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something like he got really good, especially for me, I would say, and for Evelyn, because it's the first time that we do a movie. So he was actually quite free with us. It's like he has his idea. So this is the idea, this is the movie, how I wanted to go. But this is the freedom that I'm gonna give you, the freedom to do whatever it looks good and it sounds good on you. And that was actually really good.
That was the best part of all this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, it was like the first day, every once in a while with Sophie, the editor, we'd look at the first take of the first day, which was in the house with Leonardo's mother and Nassim. And at the time, there was a baby in that shot, and then because the idea was to let Nassim hold a baby and like feel maternal and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And we got up there and the baby was just screaming, and then I'm also in the shot. Yona forgets his lines, like everything just went completely wrong, and it's hilarious now. Like it makes me cry laughing when I see it now, but at the time, like that was, it was the first take of the first day. I was like, oh man, this movie is gonna suck. And then over the course of the time, like by the end, especially Yona was like, I mean, he was like my assistant director. He was like, okay, guys, let's get going. Like he was really into it, and like, okay, the camera's gonna be here. I want to do this, and whereas at the beginning, it was like Yona was a little bit afraid of the camera, or didn't, and it was like the idea of doing multiple takes was confusing, because in ballet you don't do multiple takes. You perform it once and you go 100%, and that's it. And so after Yona would do something 100% once, you'd be like, wait, we're gonna do it again? I can't. and so there was like, I had to learn how to deal with that, and he had to learn how to deal with me, and there was a lot of learning. And it was just really interesting that by the last like 5 or 6 days, it just felt like so smooth with everybody. But in particular, seeing Yona's arc as an actor, I was like, wow, this is like a really good actor.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I have to say at the beginning, I was quite stiff. I don't know. It was like, I would say the thing with the cameras and everything, because in ballet you don't have camera, and especially really close. And for me, as seeing the camera like right there to my face, I was like, okay, what do I say now? And I started forgetting lines and stuff like that. I was like, oh my God, I'm doing like complete disaster here. But I think that you get used to, and then I started relaxing more and more and more, and so that was, yeah.
I have a funny story to tell. So I am working with this ballet dancer that I have to take into the
You cut.
Uh-oh.
Julio.
Julio, we don't
Yeah.
hear you. Oh.
Okay. So.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
No. Now we can. Can you repeat? Can you repeat,
Yeah.
please?
I have a very that it really come into my it really made my place in the movie. I'm working with this ballet dancer Jonah, and I have to take Jonah to the Callejón de Hamen, where it's the place of Afro-Cuban people. So yeah, Jonah have to dance for Shango, which it's like oh my God, it's like asking Jonah to dance yourself. For him, it would be very easy to do it because he's used to do it, okay? But asking Jonah to dance Shango, he doesn't know anything about it. Just the fact that he heard his name Shango, that's it. But to dance Shango in the place where everybody and all the best people with the real bata, the real people on it. And I have to be dealing with that. And the people looking at me and say, what the hell Jonah is doing? I'm saying, oh, he's okay. He's doing the right thing. I have to explain why he's doing that. And to give it a chance that it's okay, and and then the people in the back talking, no, he should do it like this, he should do it like that, because that's the way that for Cuba people is, So that was for me, it was like, oh my God, this is what I've been living all my life. Exactly that. A ballet dancer trying to be Afro-Cuban. So,
that was actually the first time that I went to the Callejón de Hamen. Even for me, I'm Cuban, I was never there, and the first time, and also Quebec, I asked the Quebec, and then the people, it's like, how many people is gonna be here? And they were like, no, not many, it's just like 10 or 15 people, don't worry. Oh my God! By the time that we had to actually like shoot the whole scene, it was like 100 people in that tiny space, and I was like, oh my God, what is happening here? I had to really dance in front of these people. I think that I actually don't know how to dance. Oh my God, that was really embarrassing.
That's interesting to feel like this as you are the lead, ballet dancer in Munich. But indeed, so Sylvain has joined us. Sylvain, are you there? Can we see you or not? Or you're hiding?
No, we see you, but we don't hear you.
Voilà.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Sylvain, welcome. So we are welcoming.
For the delay.
No, of course you are super busy, and I think people will not be surprised why, just because you are definitely one of the best sound editor in Canada, but worldwide. So you're busy working, which is, I guess, good. These days.
The last film before a long desert that's coming, but that's the time.
Yes. So we are just chatting and having this beautiful time, sharing experiences about this beautiful film that is, as you know, had its world premiere here and in Montreal. How was it for you, Sylvain? Because you've worked with a lot of Canadian filmmakers. I will not name them, but there's basically most of them. And how was this experience? Having worked with also with Kaveh, who is a musician, and so I guess his ears are very tuned. So how was that for you?
Oh, that was a super nice challenge. It's only the third time in my career that I work with a director who was a composer, and even I will say more than that, because Kaveh, besides to be a musician and a composer, is also somebody that went to school quite a lot compared to other composers. He had a very strong knowledge of music, and also it was only the second time that I worked with a director who was the composer for his own film. So, but it was super nice because Kaveh is so relaxed to work with, and it's a bit like we are sort of having same sort of a background on certain things. We have friends in common, so even if it was our own first experience and first time that we met, it was like a very common territory, if I can say that, for me. So it was a very nice challenge and very exciting, because of course he hear a lot of things that it's for a sound designer is super exciting, because he pay attention to details that like you don't have to show, to explain, compared to others, which is, it's okay like that, that you have to really present your work. But with Kaveh, things were really like quick and fast about his response. And it was also, the topic was great because we had it's a film that it's from so many people. Kaveh by himself has a lot of, let's say, original identity by his dad. He's Canadian, but also he lives in New York. We are talking about a film that happened in Cuba. Kaveh is fluent in Spanish. We have a, let's say, like an overwhelming of roots in the film, and about, so the topic, of course, is really specific to a situation in Cuba, but it's everything, all this together make like a very nice melting pot, I would say, on the very positive sense of having all those things. And yeah, it was, and the music in the film is really well improved, I will say. So, I mean, I tried with the sound design to play with it, and it was very cool, very nice experience. And myself, I had the chance to go to Cuba in a like personal trip, a bit far away from tourism and stuff. So I was happy to enjoy. I feel a certain connection also. So yes, it was very, very nice.
So Kaveh, why Sylvain? I mean, of course, there is an obvious answer, but did you also feel that, know that this would be a person with whom you would have this communication that doesn't need words all the time, especially as sound people?
Well, I mean, to be honest, when I first met, I was like, it has to be Sylvain, because I've seen, you know, all the movies that or many of the movies that he's done sound for. I was like, he really gets the kind of sonic textures that I was going for, because I didn't want all the sound to be literal. I wanted a lot of the sound to be working more in a poetic space, and I knew he could do that. But yeah, I was like kind of nervous at first, but I thought he was cool. And then, but then as we started working, it became clear pretty quickly. Like, I was working on the music at the same time. We were just both totally in the sound world together, and we have like a kind of a similar vibe on a certain level. Like, so, you know, it would start getting late. It's like, all right, well, we're here. Let's open a bottle of wine. Let's do this. Let's hang out and let's make it together, and not stress out about exact time and, okay, it's gonna go overtime or whatever. It's just like, let's make this thing happen. And I mean, I think I'm very, very detailed with sound, and so I think I was like a bit of a pain in the ass sometimes about getting it where I wanted. But Sylvain was very patient with me, and we did get it to a place where I was happy. And then Hans Lettre, who is the mixer, was amazing too, and he was a big part of the sound. And he really, there's times when rhythmically something actually wasn't working that seemed like it was working when you just hear it on a laptop or on small speakers, and Hans was able to be like, okay, well now there's like sa cloche, so what do we do? And then, because Hans is a drummer, he would be like, okay, what if we move this sound over here, like, which you're not usually doing in a mix. And he was able to, like, the final things that weren't quite right, Hans was able to create the space for everything to work. So, you know, the whole sound experience with Sylvain and Hans was amazing.
Yeah, I can also, thanks Kaveh, to mention the mixers, super important part of the puzzle. We also have to mention the very good work of the production sound mixer who was on the field in Cuba. Unfortunately, I forgot his name. Kaveh will remind us, but he picked up a lot of really good sound from Havana. So we were able to really, I hope, we really bring the vibe of the city, of all this, like sometimes the chaotic, wonderful sound that the city can have. So he did a very good job.
Yeah, so Laurent Ouellette was a really great production sound guy. And I mean, that was the thing, is like, in Cuba, you're dealing with so much chaotic sound that if you actually did a realistic depiction of the sound, it would just be chaos and you wouldn't hear any dialogue or anything. So it's like, so you're always kind of walking this line between how do we show the kind of chaotic sound and all the energy that's going by and still hear people and have it feel really present. So, you know, we're putting like songs in people's cars and like having the music pan across and just having this kind of constant like movement. And when we were mixing in 5.1, hopefully people will get to see it on the screen. We've got like there's a lot of sound moving from the back to the front, and it's like it creates a very immersive sound space, so that you feel, and then the contrast between that intense sonic world of Cuba and the épuré kind of sonic world of Montreal winter becomes really stark.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, the contrast is amazing, and also for the audience, I definitely want to warn them. This is not about like salsa and exotic vision of Cuba and of actually the music. It's really, as you said, there's something very poetic, very yeah. You can really see it's part of your creative process, and it's part of the writing of that film, which unfortunately a lot of filmmakers sometimes tended to not pay too much attention to. Sylvain, do you want to say something about that? Maybe like sound and film. I find lately that a lot of films don't particularly pay attention so much to sound. I don't know if you've noticed that in I don't know, the films that are shown, but not at the FNC, of course. But
no, of course, there's a certain new movement that didn't exist like maybe like that like 40 years ago, 30 years ago. When I was in my 20s, for instance, even if I was really exciting about it, we didn't have much things to read about, theory about, knowledge about. It was still always the same people. And now even if we're still at the old school of the 70s in US that really shock in a good way the world of cinema, but now we really have a real mixity in sound that also come with well, we say like in French we do like artiste sonore, we'll say like sound artists in English, but we have people that do performance on stage basic on sound, that it's not music itself. So that like it's like a mixity also with the movement of electronic music, sorry, with the DJs that came to after decades to that's a certain level of mixity that you can create a music which is not a music. I'm really not considering myself a musician, but I think sound designer can flirt with the border of music. So I think let's say it's a mixity of things that were not necessarily clever before. I just give an example of a great film with William Dafoe that was released last year. I think went to the Oscar for Dafoe. It's called The Lighthouse. I forgot the title.
Yes, indeed.
So the work of sound in this film is totally in the vibe of contemporary sound design in certain films that didn't exist like that before. So yeah, of course, it's a fantastic movement that I'm very happy with this, because I feel that what can I say? I think it's a world that
en français. Tu peux le dire en français si tu veux.
No, it's okay. I don't know. It's okay. I can say it in English, but I just want to say that I think it's a world that is emerging right now, and there's like, we feel like the boundary is really not as far. So we can have, let's say we have like a big big field to play with. So
nice.
I think there's clearly, I agree with you. There is something there.
Okay, so I'm really sorry, Kaveh. We're gonna have to very, very shortly, because I want to make sure that we say goodbye properly and that we honor this meeting properly. But please.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna say, I just want to argue with Sylvain about one thing. I think he is a musician, even if he disagrees with me. There's one place where a cue wasn't working, and I came back the next day, and he'd actually just written a musical cue and put it in there. And it was made out of my sounds, but it was like, okay, you're totally a musician there. So. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so on behalf of the FNC and on behalf of the festival, also the programming team, who are so happy that you accepted to give your film, Kaveh and Gabrielle, thank you so much for offering this film to the Montreal audience and the Canadian audience. Thank you all, really. I've seen the film, it's fabulous, it's beautiful. Please, the audience, go. Support this film. We need support, or they need support more than ever. So please push this film. It's a beautiful film. It's a relevant film, but I find that Kaveh, you treated it with so much poetry, actually, and so much talent. So thank you, everyone. Muchas gracias. Thank you. I think we have a little surprise from Susanna, or are you, Kaveh? Am I supposed to ask you to send some music? But if there is anyone who wants to say something before we shut down this panel, is there anything you want to say to the public? We can only finish with music. It's a Cuban story in Havana, in Montreal, and only music could close this. So I'm very, very happy to have celebrated with you your world premiere online. And I hope really, truly that all of you will be on stage soon and that we can hopefully hug you and maybe kiss you and congratulate you again. So thank you very much and see you soon.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Ciao.
Thanks, Kaveh.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Chawi. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Pablo.
Thank you,
Thank you, Gabriel.
Thank you.
Merci. À
Thank
bientôt.
you.
Et oui, il faut la musique. C'est Cuba.
Vamos a darle con euforia. Estoy lista para refrescar tu memoria.